Welcome to the White and Blue Podcast. I'm Colleen McGinnis, and my co-host is Doug Goodnow. We are here to tell the interesting stories of Hillsdale College alumni, or more accurately, help them share their own stories. Here's a little bit about today's guest, who is very near and dear to my heart. He first came to Hillsdale College as a wide receiver recruit on the football team. After an All-American career on the field, he spent more than 25 years in the field of admissions, helping Hillsdale recruit future Chargers. He is now back in athletics, currently serving the college as the Director of Athletic Development. After more than 35 years with the college, let's find out what makes Jeff Lantis want to charge on, as he says in all of his emails and letters. Welcome, Jeff.
Well, thank you, Colleen. Great to be here.
Yes, and what I would also like to say in your introduction is that Jeff was my first real boss in the real world, and he tolerated me for almost 10 years, and I'm very grateful for all of that.
Coco was one of the best hires ever in the history of the admissions office at Hillsdale College. And she had a little bit of a setback and left us for a couple of years. But then she came back to her home, which is Hillsdale College, where she should remain until she dies.
And my history goes back with you even further, because I did my high school official visit for baseball. And guess who my admissions tour guide was? Mr.
Really?
Jeff Lantis.
I can't believe you still came to
And I
Hillsdale
still
College after a tour of
Coach
campus
Reitma
with
sold me,
Lantis,
but you did a
for
good
crying out
job of laying the groundwork. So,
And then I even came back to work for you after working for somebody else. It was
really
great.
Puzzling, isn't it? It's puzzling.
All right. Into our interview here. We'll jump right in. Now, I'm not calling you old, but you've been a fixture here at Hillsdale for more than 35 years. We mentioned that. How did you first hear about Hillsdale College? Do you remember that day?
Well, I'm not quite that old that I can't remember when I first heard about Hillsdale, but I was, it kind of goes way back to high school, and I am the youngest of 6 in my family, and nobody really had college aspirations, and I started playing this game called football, and my high school football coach, one of the most influential people in my life, said I should consider playing some college football. And so that's really what the impetus was behind the college search. It was football related, and Hillsdale College was one of the schools. But the reason that I came to Hillsdale, I think, was because it was NII Division I and offered scholarships. And I was from a pretty poor family, so we weren't really thinking of going to college. So it was scholarships or I'm not going to be able to go to college. And fortunately, at Hillsdale College, I had a chance to earn a scholarship as opposed to going to a Alma or an Albion or Anderson and a Division III school where they didn't offer scholarships. And so I thought I'd invest in myself, and if I didn't make the football team and earn a scholarship, I would join the Marine Corps. So I ended up at Hillsdale College.
and you made a very good decision. I'm sure people remind you of that every day.
Well, thank you, Doug.
So not only did you attend Hillsdale College, and we'll get into your All-American status a little bit later, but you stayed and went into the area of admissions, which at that time, Hillsdale was an academically strong institution. Tell me about that process, that transition from being a student into actually an employee and specifically into admissions.
Sure. So, after graduation, I spent a couple of years working for a company in Southfield, Michigan, as a salesman. We sold computer software, and came back to Hillsdale to hire some Hillsdale students to work for my company, and got hired by the college as the director of career services, of all things. And I did that for about a year and a half, and they decided to bump me over to admissions. And I really wasn't interested in the job. I was trying to just stop at Hillsdale for a couple of years, make some connections, and then Kelly and I were trying to get off to move out to Grand Rapids, Michigan, was our target city. But admissions really, really grew on me, and that's how I landed there, and really enjoyed my experience in admissions. And that was a long tenure there, 25 years.
So other than when I almost made you miss your flight because I was asking for a raise and I couldn't stop talking in Seattle and you had to catch a flight, I'll be forever embarrassed by that.
I've almost forgotten that.
But other than that, what is your most memorable admission story or craziest, a most ridiculous story?
Well, that is a crazy and ridiculous story.
I did get the raise though, so it was good.
Only because I didn't miss my flight. If I would have missed my flight, that would have negated that. Well, I don't know. A crazy admission story.
Or most memorable. It doesn't have to be crazy.
Well, I think the most memorable would probably be our scholarship weekends. I think those were probably the most enjoyable. I don't know if there's a specific one in particular, but and that kind of branched out into a leadership weekend. And as we tried to identify our top students, we would bring these kids in from all over the country. And they were, as you remember, Colleen, they were extremely talented and motivated. And we involved faculty in the interview process. And we put them through the ringer. And then they got to experience Hillsdale, kind of roll out the red carpet and recruit them. And I think that's probably was my most memorable, maybe the favorite aspect, other than, of course, the admissions staff, who were very, very impressive. We only hire the best
Entertaining
in the admissions office because, you want to represent the college. And so anybody who gets hired as an admissions counselor, they were top drawer.
So you were spent 26 years in admissions total, right?
25, 26.
25.
Yeah.
So in that time, I mean, I was a part of that for almost 10 years. And then I include the time my sister applied and then I applied. So I've been kind of familiar a little bit with Hillsdale's admissions since probably 1997. And you have been, I mean, your work advanced, I think, the college really in those 26 years on a national scale, a national level. We moved from being more regionally ranked to nationally ranked. What do you think was kind of the biggest impetus for that success, and what did you learn?
Well, it wasn't an overnight experience as far as the college's transformation. I think it was a slow and steady pace. We met our goals every year. We raised the standards every year. We didn't raise them by 2 or 3 points a year. We raised them incrementally, and I think that slow growth was something that was pretty healthy for the college. It wasn't an overnight transition, and so I think people were able to grow into the standards that we were looking for with regard to the incoming class. And then we shifted our focus on students who were a good fit for the college, not just someone who could, score highly on the ACT or the SAT. And I think I liked that element of our admissions process best. And I think that we used a number of different techniques to try to sort out who was a good fit, but came up with an app score late in the transition as the standards grew, and I think that helped us really try to recruit fit over just academics.
Yeah, that was where I was going with my next question. Was academics, you kind of know the bars where it is, and when applications come in, you can determine those things pretty straightforward. Tell me about the fit. What were some of the qualities you feel like Hillsdale College students have and had over the years?
Well, when we went to this app score, we actually, I don't know if Colleen, if you were part of that, but I took the admissions staff up to Rockwell Lake Lodge, and we took Dr. Murphy, a math professor.
I remember.
And we went through all kinds of white paper, and we came up with 4 different categories for evaluating a student. Then we had to weight them differently, which is why we brought the math professor, because and we really got into the weeds a lot. And then when it all came out, we were looking at things. Certainly academics were important, and so that represented a large percentage of the app score. But then we gave some hearty weight to extracurricular involvement, and then we actually went a few layers deeper and talked about breadth, depth, and impact. I thought that was one of our best things, because we took a look at involvement, and might be involved in a lot of things, but how deep did you go in your involvement? Were you the president of the student council, or were you just a member? And then what was the impact of that involvement? And I think that really brought out a lot of leadership characteristics, and allowed us to perhaps weight that a little better, a little more than we had in the past. And then there was, there was a writing aspect. We wanted to make sure that students could write, so we could look at their essays, and then I think the fit came with letters of recommendation that came in We weighted those a little more heavily. We also actually looked at how many times a student visited campus or attended a Hillsdale program. We thought if they visited a counselor at a high school, we thought that was a good indication of fit. We liked it if they attended a non-admissions program for the college, got involved in our high school study abroad program, or were actively interested in Hillsdale College. And so I think that those things were things that we looked at late in the game that were very, very helpful in the evaluation process.
I remember that was the first time I've ever played bocce ball.
How'd you do? Did you let me win?
No, I don't think so. But I do think that they use a system fairly similar to what you laid out, probably with some nuanced differences. But that seems to have laid a good foundation for what they're all doing now, which is great. All right, so you often mention that you met your wife, Kelly, who's also a Hillsdale grad, at the 50-yard line. Tell us about that.
Well, it's she hates it when I tell this story because it's very corny, and I tell everyone that I met my wife on the 50-yard line at Hillsdale. Kelly was a cheerleader. I was a football player. We met on the 50-yard line, and we were married 5 years later. And all that is actually true. And it's true because she was a cheerleader standing on the 50-yard line while we were being introduced at a home football game. And I actually bumped into her. I thought, wow, we got a big game coming up, but that cheerleader is pretty good looking. And but I have to credit my quarterback, Mike Gatt, his wife, Maureen, his high school sweetheart, was a sorority sister of Kelly's. And she's the one who introduced us. And so we went to Adult Sig fraternity party, and I'm not a big dancer, so that was strike number one. And luckily, I didn't strike out. So, but we started dating when we were when I was a sophomore in college, and dated all through college, and got married a couple years later. And Kelly is the light of my life, and she's the COO of the Lantis clan, and we've had a great experience, and certainly credit Hillsdale College for the matchmaking.
Speaking of the Lantis clan, you have quite a few family members who are Hillsdale College grads, and it seems like you keep adding to that number. Was that planned, or was that something where your children just migrated to Hillsdale on their own?
We took a picture a couple of years ago when Chance Stewart graduated from Hillsdale College, and I think we lined up 19 Hillsdale grads. Chance is my nephew on Kelly's side of the family, but Kelly's parents went to Hillsdale College and graduated in the early 60s, and then Kelly and I graduated in the mid 80s. But Kelly's sister went to Hillsdale, and then I have a niece and a great nephew that went to Hillsdale College on the Lantis side. So Charger Blue runs deep, and my four children, Scott is my oldest, and he was, he's played baseball since he was 3 years old. And so he wanted to play baseball in college, and he wanted to be a Charger from day one. And then Heather comes along, and she's a little bit hesitant. So we had to go visit another college. And I said, I'm not going to call this an official college visit. This is going to be professional research by me, because I was so adamant about my kids all going to Hillsdale College. But I really think that when Scott invited his friends over, both guys and gals, to hang out at the Lantis house, my kids really got a taste of what kind of kids were attracted to Hillsdale College. And when they looked elsewhere, I think they made that comparison. And maybe it's not fair because they weren't in a picnic environment in the backyard, but they really felt comfortable with the type of kids at Hillsdale College. And I think, and once Heather went, I think the twins followed more easily, although they did make me go out west and look at or out east, I guess, and look at a couple of colleges, but they felt more comfortable at Hillsdale College for all the right reasons. They've heard it from their father forever, but I think seeing it with their siblings and seeing it in our home and at college events, I think it was hard for them to really go elsewhere.
Well, and I think in our work in admissions, our previous work, you see both. You see kids that just don't want anything to do with where their parents want them to go, and they just want to do their own thing. And, they'll eventually figure it out. But then you see the kids that are like yours, and they're more rare, to be honest. And I think that's a testimony to who you are and to who you and Kelly are. And there's obviously this legacy, that you have had in your family, kind of you leading the way. So I think that's really special. So with that said, why do you think Hillsdale College is so important in the world today?
Well, as you know, the world is upside down, and I really think Hillsdale is important because of its great history, its mission certainly, and more importantly, I think it's the adherence to that mission. I mean, Hillsdale has stood firm, since its founding, and there's been challenges along the way, and it has stood firm with regard to its mission and philosophy. And I think higher education today is truly upside down. I mean, the world is upside down, but higher education, especially in America, it's crazy. I mean, this wacky wokeness is crept in, and I always say that you have this politicization of things followed shortly thereafter by absurdity, and you can find it prevalent in higher education today. So I think Hillsdale's important because of its unwavering stand with regard to its mission, and we just haven't changed. We haven't done anything different. We just haven't changed. We've adhered to those founding principles of the colleges, which includes the founding principles of America. And a lot of higher education has decided to go a different direction for whatever reason.
Well, speaking of going a different direction, we're going to take a little break here and do the Hillsdale History Minute. So this is a chance where we bring a slice of Hillsdale College history to the podcast. And in honor of our special guest today, we're going to remember the 1985 NII National Champion football team, of which Mr. Lantis was a member. In more than 100 years of Hillsdale football history, only one team has reached the pinnacle of success of a national championship. The 1985 team, coached by legendary Dick Lowry, won 11 consecutive games. In the championship game against Central Arkansas, Hillsdale quarterback Mike Gatt connected with Scott Sugg on a 50-yard touchdown pass midway through the fourth quarter to tie the game at 10. No one was able to score in the overtime period, so the teams shared the national championship. The Chargers finished the season 11-1-1, the second most wins in school history. We'll take a break and be right back with the White and Blue Podcast.
It's no secret that Americans are more divided than ever. And it's not just over what policies will improve our great country. No, it's over whether America is great at all, whether America deserves our love. That's why Impr Primus is so important. Impr Primus looks at the issues of the day from a constitutional perspective, reminding citizens always of our great heritage of liberty. For more than 50 years, Impr Primus has featured speeches from the smartest conservative thinkers and writers at Hillsdale events. These days, Hillsdale publishes people like Molly Hemingway, Andy Puzder, Harmeet Dillon, and Chris Rufo. Over 6.4 million American households and businesses receive Impr Primus absolutely free. And I urge you to sign up for it today at no charge. To get your free lifetime subscription, go to hillsdale.edu/lifetime right now. Or text the word Impr Primus to 71844 and we'll send you a link to sign up for your free lifetime subscription. That's IMPRIMIS to 71844.
All right, we're back with Jeff. How you doing?
Doing great. This is fun. You guys are fun.
Well, it's fun to have you. Just wish there were cocktails, but next time. All right, so back to football. We enjoyed that history minute, Doug. Thanks so much. Jeff, tell us about that championship game. What do you most remember? Core memories here.
Core memories. So actually remembering the championship game, you have to go back to the semifinal game where we were down 21-0 in the fourth quarter and came back and won in double overtime, which makes no sense for us to be tied for a national championship. But It was another comeback, and what I remember most is, it was 10-3, and there was only a minute or so left in the game, and we had an unsung hero, and we had a number of unsung heroes, but Scott Sugg was a kind of a third-team wide receiver, a third wide receiver, second-team wide receiver, and they were doubling everybody else up, and Mike Gatt found Scott Sugg for the touchdown pass, so that was exciting. At the end of the game, Coach Lowry was talking to us about, being tied for a national championship. We all had this weird feeling in our stomach, and he says, when you look back on this, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, nobody's going to remember that you were co-champions. You are national champions. What else could you possibly want? And one of our linebackers stood up and said, "We need rings, Coach. We need rings." So once we got the rings, everybody was fine. And I guarantee you the rings don't say 1985 co-champions.
Yeah, I didn't even know that you shared that victory, but
it was a little weird at the time, but it was exciting. The grass in Arkansas in November was almost was white, actually, and so they had to paint the lines purple so you could actually see where the down markers would be.
Well, if you look back, obviously before 1985, the Chargers haven't done anything at that level. And then since that time, I know, I covered as sports editor a few really strong teams that never got to that final step. So, looking back nearly 40 years now, how special that was and what that accomplishment meant, because it's hard to win those. As Michigan football finds out, you can't just do it every other year. Most of these programs, it's a once in a lifetime type accomplishment.
yeah, I wish I could have been there, but I was 3.
You were 3 years old. We would have given you a front row seat.
So what do you think is your current role of Director of Athletic Development? What do you think makes Hillsdale College athletics special in today's environment?
Well, one of the important points that we stress is that Hillsdale College is the best academic school in all of Division II athletics. So, there's a couple of schools, an engineering school out west that's pretty good, and another school out east that's pretty good, but we are the best. The academic standards, we're the best in the country. So I think you attract a different type of student athlete to Hillsdale College, and I think we've tried to position ourselves to recruit, some Ivy League kids or some, second tier major universities, research universities for kids. And so I think that's what makes us special, is that we're able to attract that caliber of student athlete. And not only are they smart and hardworking and of good character, but they like to compete. And, I think the selling point that we used to make was, why not come to Hillsdale College and be an All-American instead of, walking on at a Mid-American Conference school or playing there even. Come to Hillsdale if you're smart enough and compete at a high level. And Division II is really a great division to be in, because it's not a full-time job, but it's serious. And so it's not like Division III where they have, 200 people on a football team. It's right in between, and I think it's just the right spot for Hillsdale College.
Jeff, in your newish role, I guess now it's been, almost 10 years, but so it's evolved a little bit in the last couple of years. But tell us your key objective in your job as Director of Athletic Development.
So the key element really is to raise money for athletics. That's the very simple and straightforward term. There are ways in which we go about doing that are a little bit different than others, but similarly to alumni relations, you have to have an alumni base that you try to attract and engage and keep them connected with the college. And fortunately, we have athletic events in which we can do that for every season. We have a wonderful marketing department. You guys have done a great job pushing out information about our athletes, our student athletes, and what they're doing now, and keeping them engaged with the college. And so 2 elements that are our focus really are facilities and scholarships. Our facilities are in pretty good shape. The indoor facilities in particular were redone a few years ago, but right now we're in the midst of an outdoor facility improvement plan, and we've knocked off the baseball field and the track.
Amen.
Right.
That's awesome.
And it's going to be a wonderful ribbon cutting here in April. And then we have softball left. And then we're going to move to a turf building and a stadium renovation before I die. So that's the focus, and that's what I do.
So outside of an affinity for athletics, because they went here and they were an athlete, or their kid was or is an athlete, what would you say is the most compelling reason that someone should give to athletics at Hillsdale in particular, that maybe wasn't an athlete?
We have donors that are passionate about sports and don't have a connection. We had a gentleman from Connecticut who is a huge baseball fan. He's actually on the board of a minor league baseball program or team out in Connecticut, and he had some relatives in Ohio, and he was driving by one day, and he was an Impr Primus reader, and he decided to stop in and say hello, and I spent a couple hours with him, and he loves baseball, and he heard the story about athletics at Hillsdale and how some of the sports weren't fully funded, and so he put us in his estate plan, and then he now funds a scholarship, and he's starting out with a baseball player, and then he's going to go to track and cross country, and then maybe even softball along the way. So that's how,
awesome.
Yeah. So that's been fun, but I think that they're attracted to athletics at Hillsdale College because of the philosophy and mission of the school. And I think that they love the fact that these students are, in the classroom, they're studying, what does it mean to be a human being and how does the world work through all these liberal arts lenses. And then they get to take all those wonderful virtues like courage and apply them in a field of competition and push themselves harder than they've ever been pushed physically and perhaps mentally and emotionally with regard to their sport. So I think that's what attracts people who don't necessarily have the experience at Hillsdale, but really understand how the mission of the college is supported and integrated with athletic competition.
Much like the alumni office, our job is to connect the past with the present, alumni with current students. And I think you in the athletic circle have that unique role where you're often out meeting with a lot of former student athletes, but you're also trying to connect them with the current Hillsdale College athletics and trying to make that connection. Part of it is the Hall of Fame committee, which you are the chair. And as someone who's part of that committee, I know it's very satisfying to go through that process. And then, the Hall of Fame banquet, which we had this year at homecoming, was just a special occasion. So tell me a little bit about, the Hall of Fame process and how you view that.
Well, the Athletic Hall of Fame at Hillsdale College was started by Mike Kowalczyk, an athletic director, I don't know how many years ago. And so it's not really that old, but every college in the country has, that has athletics has a Hall of Fame. So I think it's important to reward our graduates of Hillsdale College with this award. The process really entails a nomination form that can be filled out online. Anyone can be nominated. You have to have graduated from Hillsdale. I think we're holding it now 10 years out instead of 5 because we have so many great candidates for induction. And then, we have meetings throughout the year to discuss the candidates. And then the marketing department has done a great job in assisting us with promoting it. And we have these wonderful videos that we do each year, similar to the Alumni Achievement Awards. And then we have a banquet. And we've been great to partner with the Alumni Office and to hold this event at homecoming. It has been a great, I think last year's was one of our better Hall of Fame banquets. So that's the process. And we have good representation on the board. We try to represent all the different decades. And then we've been, trying to make up time with we had a posthumous induction last year for a gentleman who, graduated in the 60s. So we've been trying to catch up a little bit. And I think we're close to being able to comfortably induct the right people each year.
Yeah, it's special. I truly enjoy it. It's one of the more interesting parts of being at the college.
It's fun to see what our athletes have done after graduation. So part of the presentation is as part of the banquet. We have a video that shows, what they've been up to, how they ended up at Hillsdale College, and then Then they talk about, where they are in their life today, and they talk about their families and their professions and their communities and how sport had such a heavy impact in their life and their coaches and their teammates and the college. And so it's kind of a neat combination of all those attributes.
All right. Well, it's been said of you, and I've heard you say it also, that you bleed Charger blue. And I think that's probably true in many ways. So if you could wave a wand and wish one thing for Hillsdale Charger athletics, what would it be?
Well, if I had a wish, and it could be anything, I wish that we had a endowment that endowed the entire athletic department, all of our expenses, including scholarships. So that's only about $350 million to fully endow that. Only.
Get busy, Jeff. Come on.
So we're working on that. But the second part would probably be more realistic. It would be to have all of our sports fully funded. I think that we have 4 sports that have the full allocation of athletic scholarships. I think facilities are important, but if you ask our coaches, they'd rather have scholarships. And so for baseball to be so competitive with being funded at 50-60% of what the other competition is funded, that I think that if we were able to endow those scholarships, and that's only $100 million to endow all those scholarships. But I think that would be my magic wand wish, would be that we would have our athletic department endowed so that it would continue forever. And then if not, then scholarships so that our sports could continue forever. I think competition is one of the great American characteristics that is being lost today.
That's a good note to end on, I'd say. Right, Doug?
Absolutely. Jeff.
Awesome.
Again, we appreciate your time today and the conversation. We didn't expect anything less than what you brought us. So we could have probably gone on for another couple hours.
Thanks for all you do.
You are both very special people, and the college is very fortunate to have both of you here, and I hope you stay here longer than I have. A lot longer. So thanks for having me today.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right. For Doug Goodnow, this is Colleen McGinnis thanking you for joining us on the White and Blue podcast. And may that spirit long remain.